You just got to be really, really careful. And unless you have somebody on your side, you're not getting the best deal. I found that out. And you don't know the full implication. This is not like normal things that we deal with on properties. Is that fair to say?
It's more than fair to say. That you mentioned a couple of things real quick, is that cell tower companies, especially the wireless carriers, and like I said, I was inside one, the biggest one, for several years. They rely upon one thing. They're big. They're strong. They're like an elephant. I always say they're like an elephant. They can just knock down walls over and over. And they're in a court somewhere every day trying to take on either a property owner, a municipality, et cetera. They work upon that concept of power. So the question would be, how does a property owner, or how does a consulting firm like ours, how they take on these companies? It's very simple, is that while they're really strong, they're not very agile, like an elephant. And if you understand how to be agile and you understand where the leverage points are in these negotiations, you can take advantage of the situation. If you understand, as you mentioned, most property owners believe, hey, I know how to enter into a lease. I know how to do this. I'm an expert in the self-storage industry. I'm an expert in the real estate industry. This is not a real estate transaction. I've said that for years and years and years. It's a utility transaction. Every wireless company, every cell tower company values every one of its cell sites based upon the utility or production of that site. You can't judge it and you can't structure an agreement based upon a simple real estate concept. And they're very good at two things. They're very good at a lot of things. But a cell tower company or a wireless carrier is very good about taking things away from you and you don't realize they're being taken. Because people look at a lease, you can read a lease just as well as I can. The difference is when I read it, I can tell you why something's in there and how they're going to try to use it. And they're going to try to use it to take things away from you. But they're better at something else. They're better at being able to give you something, and it looks really great, but it really isn't what it seems. And that's where property owners do a little bit of research and they think they're armed with the information, but don't have the right information, but more particularly, they don't know how to apply it, because everything you read online, everything you study, the cell tower companies and the wireless carriers know is out there, and they already have the background and the information to have the next step, and the next step, and the next step to make you feel like you got something, and you really didn't.
100%. They are absolute masters at that. And, one of the things that we looked at, it's far easier, like, getting started, first of all, off the right foot. That, like, if you're being approached, you have to structure it right, because once that's done, you're kind of in a pickle. And so if taking advantage of the opportunities, right, is both knowing the downside and the upside, they're really good about showing you the upside and making it seem like it's a really big win for you, all not understanding exactly what you're giving up. And what you give up lots of times may be extraordinarily damaging to your property. So let's talk a little bit about and explain to people how having a cell tower inside on your property, which the cell tower companies pay you for, and that's the beauty of it, right? And there's other things we can talk about, like packaging up and selling off, and there's different things like that. But let's talk about what it means when you have a cell tower on your property and what rights you're either giving up or how that's structured, and how that affects things like a cell or what you do on your property. So let's just cover that right away.
Well, there's a tactic that is used by cell tower companies when they come to a property owner. They try to, as you mentioned, there's an economic package of this, and they try to get you to focus on that. But what they're doing, the tactic is de minimis, and that just means they de-minimize everything. What I mean by that is they come out to a property owner, all types, including self-storage, and they say, we're only going to be using this area over here in the back of the property. Well, that's the first non-truth they're saying to you. First of all, they're using that area, but they're going to have easements for utility, fiber optics, access, and those are going to cut across your property. That's number one. The second thing, which is more important, is when people look at that agreement, they mostly do not understand that the cell tower company is putting restrictions on all their property. And what I mean by that is this. A couple quick examples. If I came out to a self-storage owner or any property owner, and I said, look, I'm going to offer you 10 times market rate for the property, and I just have one condition. I need the cell tower company, cell tower's fine, I need them to reroute the utilities 50 feet to the east. 98% or more of all cell tower leases have no relocation clauses. So you couldn't do anything. Now, that's an issue. And people say, well, I have no plans on redevelopment or selling the property, et cetera. You're signing a lease that's going to last for possibly decades. How can you ever determine what you're going to need to do with that property down the road?
Or what another owner wants with it.
Exactly. You're making the agreement.
You.
Yeah, you're making the agreement not only for yourself, but the next guy and the next guy and the bank and everybody else.
Yep.
So that's number one. The second thing is, and where property owners get really sidetracked, is that they signed an agreement and they don't need to move anything around. And they and they decide they're going to redevelop their property. Let's say you're going to take a self-storage facility and you're going to make it a 4-story self-storage facility instead of a single story or whatever. You have to go back to the cell tower company, and at their sole discretion, they can determine if that redevelopment of your property is going to conflict with what they're doing. Now think of that. You have a ancillary revenue source that can be a good deal, but you have an ancillary tenant that can determine what you can do with the rest of your property. That's a huge issue.
It's a huge issue because, too, markets change. So let's say that on your storage facility is full of 10 by 20s. And in your market, the market changes to where the market actually doesn't value 10 by 20s anymore. It values 5 by 5s or 10 by 10s that have a certain condition. So you need to change up some of your unit mix. Why? Because your revenue's dropping, you have over occupancy, and all of a sudden you have a problem. So you want to go and change that, and you want to mix that up. Like you said, I need to add in climate control because I need to offset this parking, which has no value now. I can't even get occupancy, but this has huge, so I can improve the value and keep my business running, everything else. That cell tower can be like, no, you can't do that. You've given up power of your business to something that is an ancillary and a very small part. Now, it may seem like a lot of money up front, $2,000 a month, right? Or $3,000 a month, or maybe you're trading it and packaging it up and they're going to give you a nice chunk of change. But then that could devalue and restrict you so much that you're basically giving up all your future potential, your ability to be nimble. And then if you have to sell it and somebody else looks at that and says, I'm completely handcuffed onto what I can even do with this property. This property is no longer a normal real estate transaction. It no longer holds the same value as one. And all of those conditions have to be put into the acceptance and the price that I'm going to be willing to offer because I'm strong. This guy controls it, not you. This guy does. So your property now is worth tremendously less to me. And people don't think about that, or they don't even know it's happening, I'd say.
No, you're exactly right. They don't know it's happening. Like I said, there's things are being taken away from them, and they don't realize that it's being pulled from them. And that's what we talk to property owners. The first thing we talk to property owners all across the country of all types when they present a new cell tower lease or they have an existing one, is we say, understand, most people contact us, the vast majority, people contact us and say, what should my rent be on a new lease, existing lease, et cetera? And one of the things we try to get people to do is think bigger and forget about the rent. First thing, I said, look, if I tripled the rent tomorrow and I said it had one condition for me to triple it, would you want to know what that one condition is? And they say, yes. And I say, well, before you determine what your rent should be on a new lease or an existing lease, you need to understand what you're agreeing to. Not only today, but going forward. And you need to understand how to structure an agreement, not just put the rent right, but a structure. Structure will benefit you financially, but it also protects you and your larger investment, which is your property. And that's what we try to get people to do. Build pathways, build flexibility. And with all types of property owners, including self-storage, that's one of the things they just miss. And it comes back to bite them. And the longer these agreements are, the more opportunity for that bad thing is to happen.